Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So we continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam's first canto, first chapter, questions by the sages, and today is text 20. Kritavan kila karmani saha ramena keshavaha atimarchani bhagavan guda kapatamanushaha. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, and Balaram played like human beings, and so masked they performed many superhuman acts. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Doctrines of anthropomorphism or that of zoomorphism are never applicable to Sri Krishna or the personality of Godhead. A theory that a man becomes God by dint of penance and austerities is very much rampant nowadays, especially in India. Since Lord Ram, Lord Krishna and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were detected by the sages and saints to be the personality of Godhead, as indicated in revealed scriptures, many unscrupulous men have created their own incarnations. This process of concocting an incarnation of God has become an ordinary business, especially in Bengal. Any popular personality with a few traits of mystic powers will display some feat of jugglery and easily become an incarnation of Godhead by popular vote. Lord Sri Krishna was not that type of incarnation. He was actually the personality of Godhead from the very beginning of his appearance. He appeared before his so-called mother as four-armed Vishnu. Then, at the request of the mother, he became like a human child, and at once left her for another devotee at Gokul, where he was accepted as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata. Similarly, Sri Baladev, the counterpart of Lord Sri Krishna, was also considered a human child born of another wife of Sri Vasudeva. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that his birth and deeds are transcendental, and that anyone who is so fortunate as to know the transcendental nature of his birth and deeds will at once become liberated and eligible to return to the kingdom of God. So, knowledge of the transcendental nature of the birth and deeds of Lord Sri Krishna is sufficient for liberation. In the Bhagavatam, the transcendental nature of the Lord is described in 9 cantos, and in the 10th canto his specific pastimes are taken up. All this becomes known as one's reading of this literature progresses. It is important to note here, however, that the Lord exhibited his divinity even from the lap of his mother, that his deeds are all superhuman. He lifted Govardhan Hill at the age of 6, and that all these acts definitely prove him to be actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet, due to his mystic covering, he was always accepted as an ordinary human child by his so-called father and mother and other relatives. Whenever some Herculean task was performed by him, the father and mother took it otherwise, and they remained satisfied with unflinching filial love for their son. As such, the sages of Naimisharanya describe him as apparently resembling a human being, but actually he is the supreme almighty personality of Godhead. Tritavan kila karmani saha ramena keshavaha atimarchani bhagavan guda kapatamanushaha. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, and Balaram played like human beings, and so masked they performed many superhuman acts. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahurito Gaudadai Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudao. So in the verse today, one word, Gudha, is very significant and prominent. It actually means masked as. So, a mask is something that hides one's real identity, one's real nature. You pretend to be someone else. People put on a mask for whatever occasion, and then they kind of act out that personality. So they hide their real personality behind a mask for whatever reason. So that's kind of the implication of a mask. It's a kind of deception. So in life you can put on a mask also, like, so to say, you can put on a mask, you can pretend to be someone else, but hiding your real personality. See that so much everywhere around us in life. People make a show of being someone they are not really. So they are figuratively putting on a mask. So there's two kinds of masks actually being described in this world. In this verse. So the first one is dealing with the internal energy of the Lord. So the Lord is the Supreme Personality of God, completely transcendental, but he acted as a human child when he took his birth on the request of Mother Devaki. She was fearful that the Supreme Lord has finally manifested himself in our lives. He is here in the cell, and everything has become illuminated, and he is there in front of her as four-armed Vishnu. It's majestic, all decorated with all these wonderful ornaments, and the presence of the Supreme Lord is overwhelming. It's inconceivable for us in our present state. So she knew that her brother Kamsa wanted to kill all her children, and naturally, as a mother, she just gave birth. She is completely anxious about the protection of the child, and so she requested the Lord to kindly resume a human form, because then in her motherly nature and illusion she thought she could protect the child. The mother, she's a protector of the small baby. So she asked him to take that form, and somehow she thought she could protect him, because now it was obvious that he was the Supreme Lord. Anyone would come into the cell would just see, hey, this is Vishnu, the Supreme Lord is here. So that was a kind of illusion she was under. Of course, this is all Lord Krishna's internal energy, his Yoga Maya, that bewilders his devotees. So the Supreme Lord has different energies. Simplicity, he has, general terms, he has three major energies. He's got the internal energy, the spiritual energy. He's got the marginal energy, which is the Tatashta, Shakti, comprising of all the living entities. It's not only all the jivas, but it's more than that, the Tatashta Shakti. But it is marginal energy. It's between the spiritual and material. And then the external energy, the material energy, also called Bahir Anga Shakti, the internal Antaranga Shakti. So, different names of these different energies. Internal energy is also called Swarup Shakti, it's also called Yoga Maya, sometimes it's called Chit Shakti also. So there's different names, but here we just call it the internal energy for the benefit of those who may see this video and who's not so familiar with it. So different terms in the Bhakti Shastras and the Sanskrit literatures, they have many different names, so it takes some time to learn these different names. So this internal energy of the Lord, this Swarup Shakti, has a nature of bewildering his pure devotees in the pastimes of Krishna. They have to become bewildered, because if they would understand that he is the Supreme Lord, and we are speaking about those in Braja Lila or Krishna Loka, the highest planet. Of course, those in Vaikuntha Lokas, the innumerable Vaikuntha Lokas, they understand that Lord Narayan, the Lord on those planets, is Narayan, the four-armed form. So when the Supreme Lord in his form is in the spiritual world, he is called Narayan, and when that same form descends into the material world, it's called Vishnu. Vishnu and Narayan are the same, but Narayan is, when it's in spiritual world, Vishnu is within the material universes. So, on the Vaikuntha planets, they all know that Narayan is the Supreme Lord, but they have pure love for him. But they have that consciousness. So there is some kind of little distance. This veneration is there, but it's completely pure love. But whereas in Krishna Loka, the highest planet, and in Braj, Krishna engages with all his pure devotees, that's a different mood. That's not this Aishvarya. You do not have this little distinction, and not this consciousness that Krishna is actually the Lord. Krishna doesn't want that, because in Krishna Loka it's Madhurya Ras, it's Shantaras, it's sweetness. What is that? I forgot the Sanskrit word for this sweetness.
Madhurya?
There's another name, I think, isn't there? For sweetness. Anyway, it's sweetness. It's not this, oh, you're a god, I'm your servant. No, that can't be there for all these particular pastimes to take place, because Krishna there enjoys pastimes, not only with, he has servants there who is acting in Dasha Ras, dressing him, preparing his bath, doing all these kind of things, maybe assisting Mother Yashoda, cutting the vegetables in the kitchen. They do so many things, clean Krishna's room, all that. And that Dasha Ras is considered higher than the Dasha Ras in Vaikuntha Loka, because in Vaikuntha Loka there's two rasas, two particular mellows that the liberated souls engage in with Krishna, and that is Dasha Ras as a servant and Shantaras, neutrality. These are the two. And I heard that in Ram Leela there's some kind of what do you call it? Small fraction also of Sakyaras, of friendship, but it is generally Dasharas and Shantaras. Whereas in Krishna Loka and Braj, you got further three mellows, three different relationships with Krishna, and that is Sakyaras, friendship, all Krishna's coward friends, they engage with Krishna is as equals, because friends means equal. It's not like, oh, you're whatever higher than me. No, they're friends, and they do all kinds of things together, which necessitates that they're on the same level. They do all these sporting pastimes like boys do. They play together, do all kinds of stuff, run around, use all the energy. They fight amongst each other. They pretend to be someone else. You're the warrior, I'm this warrior, you're that warrior, and they have weapons and they engage. It's not like, oh, you're better than me or whatever. No, they're on an equal footing. This is friendship. So that's what Krishna engages in with all his coward boyfriends. They even ride on the shoulder of Krishna. They have competition. And whoever wins, they have to carry the others on their shoulders. So they carry the Supreme Lord on their shoulders. Or sometimes Krishna has to carry one of his servants. Imagine you can ride on the shoulders of God. This is like inconceivable. You can't. The Christians, the Muslims, so many different religions in this world, they can't conceive of that. How can you be carried by God on his shoulder, holding your feet and like that? But this is what they do in Sakyaras, in friendship with Krishna. Complete love. This friendship, loving friendship is like, they're just waking up every morning, all those in Sakyaras, and now we're going to meet Krishna again today. Another adventure in the forest of Vrindavan. Every day is different. It's never the same. They don't wake up and think, oh no, I have to get up early, I have to go and meet Krishna and all the coward boyfriends. And yesterday Subal said that, and you're kind of cross with him, or this is just boring. No, every day is a complete adventure. So they are just eager from when they wake up, oh, we're going to meet Krishna, quickly take a shower and do whatever, get dressed. And so this is a pure loving relationship in the terms of friendship. So that's Sakyaras. And then the next level is Vatsalya Ras, means parental love. So those in this world who have been parents, most of them, unless something is wrong in their whatever, they know the love of being a parent. You know, all the love is just oozing towards that little child they get, and it's so cute and sweet. Like we saw the other day, we had that kind of samskar, anaprashna samskar, with some of our Indian friends. And they had this little baby who was taking solid food for the first time, grains, anna means grains. So we had a little celebration, and they were all like completely like absorbed in that child and the adventure of seeing it having this sweet rice with a spoon, because until that it only had the mother's milk. But now it was giving that, and they all took turns in giving a little, sweet rice on the spoon to that little child, and had so much pleasure in seeing that reaction of that child. So that's the kind of natural love towards a small child. It's very intense, and often we hear in this world the highest form of love actually, or most selfless form of love, is that from a mother to a child. So that intensity of parental love is also there in the spiritual world, not only between like Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, but all the senior members in Vrindavan, they are in this Vatsalya Ras. So even though Krishna is not directly their child, but they still have that loving feeling towards Krishna. They still take part in that Vatsalya Ras. So it's completely pure. And then you have the Madhurya Ras, the conjugal love between like a man and a woman in this world. And that's there between Krishna and the gopis, and Krishna has unlimited gopis. And that overwhelming loving feeling we have, like we know when we're in love, we meet someone else, the heart is just completely absorbed, the mind is completely absorbed in the other person. That's natural. And you're just like, and when that love is reciprocated, you're just like in the seventh heaven. You're like floating on a cloud. That's the nature of that relationship. So that relationship we can have with God also. That's also inconceivable for most people in this world. As far as I know, not completely into that understanding, but some resemblance are there also even in a part of Islam, like in Sufism. They are very different from the rest of Islam. They have this understanding of a higher form of love, and that's being expressed in their songs. They have different songs. Also there's a music form called Qawwali, which is has its roots in this Sufism, and even the Muslims are singing this Qawwali. And quite interesting, one of the songs is actually a song of Mirabai, who's a pure devotee of Krishna, was a lady living back. She was a pure devotee. She wrote different songs, and they're very famous. And she wrote one, I forgot the title of it. There's a great, very famous Qawwali singer from Pakistan. He left many years ago, a very big fat person. He had just an amazing voice, called Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan was his name. He was like a superstar there in Pakistan. And he sang these songs, and there was some kind of devotion there, but mostly there was like, of course, speaking about the relationship. For many of them, they understood it as a relationship between man and woman. But you can actually also, some of the songs are like, you could refer them actually to Radha and Krishna. And this particular one song, which speaks about mala, the word is mala, we know kanti mala, it's a chain, we chant every day japa on the japa mala. So the song is something like, this is Mirabai, of course, singing this. She's a pure lover of Krishna. So she sings every word. At every word, she's remembering, every step she's remembering the name of her Lord, and she's chanting his name, like on a mala. Every step she's chanting his name and becoming overwhelmed by this ecstasy. And in that song, again sung by Muslims, there's the name of Sham. The name of Sham is there. So they're actually singing a song glorifying Krishna. And it's filled with, you can see that, hear that song, it's filled with emotions like that. So very, very beautiful song. So it's even there. Some conception are there also, I know, but some extent, like some of the like the nuns in the Catholic Church, they also consider Lord Jesus Christ as their husband. So they have there's some reflection of higher levels of love than what you normally experience, right? Because husband and wife, it's very, very intimate. So they dedicate their lives like they're married to Jesus. They actually have a ceremony where they are kind of offered as a bride of Jesus Christ. So there's some resemblance of Madhurya Rasa there, actually. Some conception is there. So these higher conceptions of loving relationship then necessitates a kind of ignorance, kind of illusion. Because you cannot remember that Krishna is God when you're engaged in Madhurya Rasa with Krishna. No, this is completely intimate, like he's your lover, you can't be God. And the same with the cowherd boys and with Mother Yashoda. We know the example from when Krishna was eating dirt and the cowherd boyfriends, at least, they were claiming Krishna was eating dirt. Whether he was eating or not, I'm not sure, but they were saying to Mother Yashoda, Krishna has been eating dirt. He's a naughty boy, whatever. They had this mock amongst each other, friends. Oh, you did that, they go to the parents. I'll tell my parents what you did, so they're kind of getting back at him. So they had that kind of exchange. Mother Yashoda, Krishna was eating dirt. So they got him. Krishna, he's in trouble now with his mother. And then Mother Yashoda was looking into his mouth. And then she saw Krishna showed her the whole universe in his mouth. This is inconceivable pastimes of the Lord. And then she got bewildered after some time. Like you're looking into the mouth of your child, small child, and you see the universe manifesting in there. This like completely mind-blowing. And then she got bewildered because seeing that, well, what is this? And then she started considering, Krishna is not my child. How can he be my child? I'm seeing the universe in his mouth. He must be the Supreme Lord. And then she got out of her normal role, and then she started with veneration, considering Krishna. Krishna saw that, and he didn't like that, and then his internal potency covered her over again. And was like, okay, Krishna, whatever, don't do that again, Mm-hmm. So that's Krishna's internal energy. So Krishna's got, as stated before, 3 basic energies. Spiritual, internal, marginal, and external material energy. And then also the internal energy also has 3 divisions. So there's actually one verse. There's a lot of 3s around Krishna. 3 guna avatars, the 3 energies, the 3 divisions of the internal energy, so many. So in one shloka it's stated that Krishna is a master of 3s, actually. So the internal energy is divided into what's called Sandini, Samvid, and Hladini. There's a verse in the Vishnu Purana explaining that Hladini, Sandini, Samvid, zwei eka sarva samstita. Ladata payata mishra. What is that? Mishra. Forgot the last line. So anyway, it's explained. It's a prayer to the Lord. It's explained that, tvai no gunavarjiti is the last line. So it explains, my Lord, it's a prayer. Oh Lord, you're the support of everything. Everything in the world, both spiritual and material, is supported by you. And the 3 attributes, Hladini, Sandini, and Samvid, they exist only in you. They exist only in you, and as one spiritual energy. They do not actually exist in anyone else unless Krishna imparts it into them. Only Krishna possesses these 3 divisions of the internal energy. And you're completely free from the material modes. The material modes producing happiness and distress, and a mixture of both, that is non-existent in you, because you have no material traits. So that verse explains like that. So these Sandini means the we also know them as Satchidananda in general. So Sat or Sandini, that's the means the energy of being, of existence. So anything to do with existence, maintenance of existence, that's done by the Sandini potency. Like when Krishna manifests in this world and all his liberated souls, the Nityamuktas, they manifest, that's under the influence of the Sandini potency. All maintenance is done by that potency. In the spiritual world, all the planets are there eternally, situated like that. All the wonderful buildings in the Dwarka, in Braj, whatever, they're existing due to the Sandini potency. And very eternality is Sandini potency. And then Samvid, which is meaning cognizance, consciousness, knowledge also. That's Samvid. So any knowledge, whether in the spiritual world about what to do, whatever, that's all manifested by the Chit potency, consciousness or knowledge. And then Ladini is a pleasure potency, the potency of ecstasy. We know that's manifested in Srimad Radharani. She's a personification of that. So all that amazing pleasure in the spiritual world, all that ecstasy, all that loving ecstasy, that's all the Ladini potency. So the one spiritual energy, internal energy, is divided into those three. So by that potency, Krishna is covering the pure spirit souls in the spiritual world. They're under influence of that, as we generally know in Yoga Maya, that internal potency. So that's an illusion. So that's Krishna putting up a mask, actually. Like, because here it's stated, and so masked they perform many superhuman acts. So when he comes to this material world in his original form, he performs all these wonderful pastimes, but they are masked as a human being. He is playing the role of a human. He is not a human being, but he plays a role. Of course, the general people cannot understand that. Even when Krishna was present, most people, they did not understand he was God. They thought he was an ordinary human being. He was just an amazing human being, but he was still an ordinary human being. Only a very few understood that he was actually the Supreme Lord. So that's one kind of mask. So there's another kind of mask also in the material energy. We know that that's causing the living entities, the conditioned living entities, to be unable to understand Krishna because they're under the influence of the external energy. Also, we know from the Bhagavad Gita, stated, Tripir Gunamaya Bhavai, Ebi Sarvam Idam Jagat, Mohitam Nabidyanati, Mam Ibya Param Avyayam. 7th chapter, verse 13, it states that the conditioned living entities, they are bewildered by the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And due to that, they cannot understand Krishna as he is. Also stated in another place in the 7th chapter, Nahang Prakasha Sarvasya Yogamaya Samavrita Mudo Yam Nabidyanati Lokumam Ajam Avyayam. Now in both of these verses, they're quite similar in some respects, and two words are the same in both verses. Nabidyanati and Avyayam. Avyayam means inexhaustible. That's one of Krishna's qualities. He's inexhaustible. Unlimited energies can manifest from him and never stops. That's amazing. Like he can work unlimitedly and never gets tired. That would be wonderful for us in this world. Could just work and work and work 24 hours, no problem. Or whatever comes from him manifest like Lakshmi, where you can just spend money unlimitedly, unlimited wealth continuously every second, and there's no cessation. So this is one of the qualities of Krishna. Like we like to give also charity or whatever, but every time we give some charity to a good cause, there's less in the bank account. So at one point we have to stop, even if we give everything. But that's not Krishna. He can give unlimitedly. So Avyayam, that's one of the qualities given to Krishna in these verses. And also Nabidyanati. Abhidyanati refers to knowing, knowledge, and na, negation of it. So again the other verse, Naham Prakasha Sarvasha, Krishna is not manifested to the foolish, the mudhas, and the unintelligent. So that's referring to the conditioned souls in this mature world. They're mudhas, they're very, very foolish and ignorant. And because of that, because of their contamination, and because of their aversion to Krishna, he does not manifest to them. He reserves a right to not be manifested. So, these are something about the energies of the Lord. And then, of course, a major part of the translation by Srila Prabhupada deals with how the conditioned living entities, they want to take the part of Krishna. Yes, that's the nature of the conditioned souls in different degrees. Of course, most in this world, they do not like directly kind of try to imitate Krishna, but some really want to do it. We know from Krishna Lila, Paundraka, King Paundraka, foolish king who actually put on extra arms and pretended to be Vasudeva. And Prabhupada explains here in the purport that in this present age there's so many so-called incarnations. Again, people who put on a mask. See, I'm not just a small insignificant living entity. I'm the Supreme Lord. Look at me. Right? That's what they do. And Prabhupada states that someone who's got a little whatever mystical potency, little extraordinary qualities, pretends to be someone like an incarnation. And we see that so many times in this modern world. Like, so many examples. Some years he left, like we had this fuzzy-haired yogi in India, South India, and he had so many followers. He still does, so many followers. And he pretended to be Bhagavan. And he had a little Shakti, a little siddhi, because he had performed some whatever previous lives, austerities. So he had a little Shakti. He could manifest a little bit of gold or whatever. So that was his trademark. He came to all his disciples and then a little gold, or, well, I don't know, maybe in the beginning, but then was ashes mainly, called vibhuti. This is my vibhuti. And he manifested some ashes. Oh, see, he must be the Supreme Lord. He was ugly. Like, Krishna is unlimited, attractive. This guy was really ugly. He had a big, fat nose right there in the face, and this big fuzzy. He was ugly. Like, really.
He looked like a forest dweller.
Yeah. He's very famous. He's got all these disciples, and in Denmark, actually, we have this devotee, or this Krishna's Ren, whatever we call it, since many years. And he was a follower of him when he came in the beginning. And he didn't like, he had a hard time with us criticizing this Baba, this, so-called incarnation. But then he found out some truth about him, because he's a very smart guy. So he actually became one of the, him and another, they were instrumental in bringing down this cheater internationally. So he was involved in bringing this guy down. And that person, he was, besides cheating, he was actually engaged in, not very nice relationship with young boys and young men, And this is a case of so many of them. They engage in illicit activities, sometimes with women, sometimes with men. Even one of the present big incarnations, I'm not going to mention any names here, he's still active, and he's very handsome. He's a good-looking guy, He started in the West like a branch of actually devotional. It's called Bhakti Marg, right? You don't know his name. Those who know what Bhakti Marg, they know who he is. So he's a handsome guy, and he's doing all that. And they do kirtan, and they're all doing nice kirtan and whatever. So I heard him once, speaking some katha, and it was like, God, there's no potency, no shakti there, but somehow or another, people are attracted to him. Like, he may have it externally, he may have some, what do you call this? Effulgent. We don't call it effulgence, we call
Charisma.
it charisma, thank you. So he has some charisma, and he's good looking, whatever, and all this long curly hair, the yogi, beautiful tilak and whatever. So he makes a show, and people are falling for it, whatever. He may be good at bhajan, I don't know, never heard him. But all his disciples, whatever, they have nice bhajans, and they're following the process of devotion, you know, it's like that. But then going into who is that person, and then when you go a little on the internet and you start searching, you find out that he had some very troublesome relationship with young men also, again. And so many of these others, you know, you see them. Prabhupada states, especially Bengal, on the internet. I went on the internet and saw some of the big names, and most of them, they have all these illicit relationships. And there's one in Vrindavan. He also left a few years back, and he made these beautiful temples. There's at least two I know of, and one of them is Prem Mandir, very close to our flat in Vrindavan. And they got these beautiful Radha Krishna deities, many, many followers. And this person we had Vaishnava Tilak, and supposedly, but then he had also a very unwholesome relationship also with the men. What is that? All these incarnations being gay, what is it? I don't know. But women or men, whatever. So many of them. So the point is, there's so many pretenders in this world putting up masks. I'm something which I'm actually not. And that's, we as devotees, aspiring devotees, we have to be very careful in who we surrender our life to as spiritual master, because we know it's essential. You have to take initiation from a spiritual master. It's not an option, you have to do it. So it's so important that we really check out that person and not just get sidetracked by external appearances, because some may be whatever, they may be very good at kirtan, they may speak very nicely, but these are external things, you can learn that, but internal you can have a lot of material desires. And we see that not only outside the Vaishnava community, but also inside, also within the ISKCON or the greater Hare Krishna movement. There's been so many cheaters, and some of them are still acting. And they were like followers of Srila Prabhupada, and they like have so many followers, and they may put up big shows, whatever programs, so and then, you know, if you're associating with the followers of that person, you may get sucked into it. Oh, you know, he's so this, and so Swami is so wonderful, he's doing this, and he said this, and whatever. And then because he may have again this charisma, they may become, wow, yes, it's true. And then they start falling in love with that person, right? Giving their hearts to that person. And once their heart gets, you know, very strongly attached, then you're not willing to hear unpleasant truth about that person. That's the nature of that. Yeah. So we know that from personal experience also in our time with our spiritual master, someone was criticizing and we were just, no, cannot be true. So that's very, very, very important. One really investigates that person, whether he's qualified. So the aspiring disciple has to investigate, you know, the spiritual master, and the spiritual master has to know the student whether he or she is qualified too. That's why normally you have 1 year to find out, but it can be more or less, because traditionally the aspiring disciple was living with the Guru very close, and when you live very close, you can find out who is that person. But in the context of modern society, in present day wider ISKCON, you know, the spiritual master has thousands of disciples, some of them. So how can you know the disciple? You can't. And how can the disciple know the Guru? Because they're not living with him. They only have sometimes, you know, in the lectures or whatever, they have very limited connection with him. So you can't, hard to know him. But if you live together like traditionally, a spiritual master had limited number of disciples, you found out. So we have to be very careful like that, to not become cheated by any spiritual master or by any so-called incarnation. Incarnation is always mentioned in the Shastra, so you cannot cheat. It's not possible. Maybe there's some questions, some comments? Yes?
I was thinking about this issue. I try to deal with it personally. I'd like your opinion, because people will visit us, or I will meet Matajis in temple or other places, and they are somewhat younger than me, or they are my age, and they would very much like my friendship, and we call each other friends, and I feel that they very much need this bonding of friendship. But then I write to them that I am their servant, and I feel that I am their servant, as well as I also think at least I should adopt the idea that I am the servant of all living entities as far as possible in that relationship to that entity. So, but actually we cannot entertain this title of friendship and servant at the same time. Or how are we supposed to balance this? Because we're supposed to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of, and so forth, of the cowherd damsels of Braj. So we're their servants, but when we're also the servants of all living entities.
Yeah, yeah.
But still we engage in friendship.
Yeah.
So which one of the titles is a superficial trope that we take to entertain that single relationship?
You have different kinds of relationship within spiritual life, and you got seniors, you got those on the same level, you got some who's younger than you, who doesn't know the process and knowledge as much as you. And the way, even though we are all identifying as servants, but you're serving, if you're senior to them, someone who's new, they need someone to look up to, they need someone to learn from. And that you're serving them by acting in that role. Because you have more, you have experience, you got knowledge, whatever, and also physically, I mean, in terms of age, you got the maturity from someone who's younger. So you give them both transcendental knowledge and how to apply that in their particular situation. That is how you serve them. So you cannot artificially, oh, we are same level, I cannot teach you anything because we're friends, you know. That would be a disservice to them, because they need that. They need someone to look up to. They need someone they can learn from. We have that experience now. I remember when I came to Krishna consciousness, and you know, everyone was older, and when you come, you're completely, everyone is senior to you. Everyone is more learned and knows. So I remember one of the, especially one of the devotees. When I came, his name was Adidev, and he was like at that time like 7 years in devotional service. Oh, 7 years, wow! It was like, whoa, that's a long time, right? Yeah, that's how you feel when you're completely new, how your practice is regulative principles for 7 years and all this chanting or whatever. So I looked, he was an older brother, like we were God siblings because both, you know, from the same guru. But he was like my older brother, so I very much looked up to him and took guidance from him. And the same when he went on Sankirtan. Our first, well, my second Sankirtan leader was called Priyarata Prabhu from Sweden. So he was very much we were both disciples of the same guru, but he was my older brother, and I took guidance from him, shelter of him. So it wasn't like, even though we were God brothers, but you know, he was my older brother. So that was, and I wanted that relationship. I didn't want to be, you know, pals with him, like on completely same level. You know, hey, come on here. No, that's not the relationship. It was a relationship of friendship. But within that, you can still have like, kind of, you know, someone is a senior in that sense. So that's your service to them. Should you understand like that? Like you need, if some Prabhupada Vaishnavi disciple would come here, you would naturally feel, you know, this is a senior Vaishnavi, and you wouldn't like kind of be, you know, friends like that. No, she is senior to you. You wouldn't like that. And she, you know, she may feel like you feel too younger. She may feel like the same to you, or I'm actually the servant of this bhaktin here. But she also knows that you need that, and she gives that to you. That's her love, that's her friendship. So we can't be artificial like that. These relationships are there of senior and friendship and junior. And someone who's senior, they give all their, you know, knowledge and experience to the others. And you take it from those who are more advanced. That's how we advance by, it's a kind of friendship on one level, but it's not equal. That relationship you do to other devotees who are basically on the same level. That's that kind of friendship. So your real love to them is, by giving them what they need. This is how you show that friendship.
But still, again, we see authorities that the higher their advancement, the more they should serve. But still, again, we see that this is not very much the case. That they take very much veneration and very much of an reverence from their disciples, and it is perhaps they would like to serve all of them, but they do it as a duty because they think that the disciples will need that, and that's the right way to reciprocate.
Yes. They have to do that because they're spiritual masters. That's their service to their spiritual master, is taking that role. And a spiritual master cannot be friends with his disciples.
No.
Like in that sense, hey, we're the same. No, that's the whole purpose is you surrender to a guru, right? So the guru would do a disservice to his disciple if he would make the disciple, think that they're on the same level, they're friends, so intimate friends, because we know familiarity breeds contempt. Yeah. That's why a guru cannot be familiar with his disciples. Even they can be friendly and they may give hugs and like that, depending upon the different personalities. Prabhupada would never do that, kind of generally, right? But I know the other spiritual masters may do that. I was at one point aspiring for one spiritual master, and he was like that. He gave an embrace, but even though he gave that, I knew, it's not like I'm suddenly on the same level with this Swami, right? So that's his duty. He has to be a guru, and that there has to be that difference. Even though he feels I'm the servant of my disciple, he know I have to play this role.
Yeah. So there's always this trickery in position, that what you have to act out and what you have what feeling you have internally. Yes. That I am absolutely the servant of this person and that person and all living entities, but I will serve them according to position, so that it will not be awkward, and that everyone will advance the most in that situation.
Yeah. This is etiquette, and if you transgress etiquette, problems will arise. We saw it in Krishna Leela also. Krishna with the Pandavas, we heard the other day, he met the Pandava brothers, right? And he showed respect to Yudhishthira being senior to him. He touched his feet, right? And Arjuna and Bhima, we think was embracing, same level, And Sahadev and Nakula, they came and touched his feet. They were younger. So Krishna showed that example, how important it is. Yeah. So if Krishna shows that example, who are we to kind of do something else? No, it's important to follow Vaishnava etiquette. And so whatever position we get, and we may have been so many years in spiritual life, and we may have accomplished so much, and we may get a big position, we may even become whatever sannyasi guru, but those who really advance, they see themselves as a servant, but they are serving them in that capacity by taking their service.
Yeah.
So
the fall down is if you think
you are worthy of it. Internally you have to see I'm just a humble servant, but I have to act in that relationship.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay?
Sadhu, sadhu.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.